Greetings and welcome. My name is Jake Rayson. I am a wildlife food forest garden designer, and it is now 7 o'clock. And this is my monthly free forest garden workshop, the first Monday of every month, 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. A quarter of an hour to talk about forest gardens, me on this YouTube live stream, and then 40 minutes Zoom chat with whoever's bought tickets. It's free. You book tickets on my website, natureworks.org.uk, and yes, you can book tickets there, and Realtime, of course. Anyway, I'm really gonna get a move on because there isn't a vast amount of time. 15 minutes is a very short amount of time. When you are on the website, if you press P, it brings up the notes. I'll just show you here. So press P, it brings up the notes, and there's some extra links and stuff in there which can be useful. The website is, the slideshow will always be available in some shape or form at this web address here, natureworks.org.uk/realtime, and the slides will always be there. So if you miss something, you can always get back to it. They do change. I do edit them every now and again, but that's pretty much what you'll get. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So the outline for this evening, for the 15 minutes. First of all, I'm going to look at a definition of a forest garden. Then I shall be looking at the stages of creating a forest garden, which are plan, structure, and cultivate. And then finally, it's the reference part for it. So, oops, sorry, I was trying to synchronize my synchronize my slideshows. Why forest gardens? Well, the short answer is, for me, I got into forest gardening because of the climate and ecological emergency that is raging around us as we speak. There is no time. We need to take action, and creating a forest garden is a real hands-on way of mitigating, reducing your emissions, reducing your impact, but also of creating a wildlife habitat. So it's doing something about it, but also for me as well, it's led on to other things too. So it actually connects you with other people, with other spaces too. So haven't really got time to talk about the ecological and climate emergency, the biggest emergency facing the humankind ever in its existence. But suffice to say, we're headed for 3.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise by the end of the century, if not sooner, which is appalling. And there are various tipping points which are being reached as well. And it's not talked about in the media because vested interests have they've got a vested interest in not talking about it because they can make money currently out of the way things are set up at the moment. And lots of other reasons and stuff going on too. But why? What are the benefits of a forest garden? In one word, well, kind of one hyphenated word, is well-being. That it promotes well-being for everybody, for the wildlife, for the plants, for yourself, for your community. The other benefit is, I didn't put this down actually. So the other benefit, and breaking that down, that's wildlife. That a forest garden, as we see, it's essentially an edible ecosystem. So wildlife will benefit from you having a forest garden, following forest garden principles in your garden. Then the wildlife will love you for it. Yeah, so that's basically it. Because yes, I'll go into the reasons why in a second. It's also productive. The real major benefit is that it's a productive garden, and that the first thing that you see in a forest garden is that you can eat things. And I was always amazed. It reminded me of Willy Wonka's amazing chocolate factory, where you could eat absolutely everything. And it's just like, wow, that's incredible, you can eat everything. But it's also productive in other ways as well, and it's good for your health. It's good for your health. It keeps you active. It's good for your health, and the food that you eat is high in, you grow your own food, it is a hell of a lot better for you. So what is the definition excuse me, of a forest garden? This is my kind of definition, it's a productive garden, and it emulates the edge of woodland. So it's not actually woodland. It doesn't have to be a wood, and it's not deep woodland. It's the edge of woodland, and it works with natural processes. It's all about working with working with nature. Hence the name of my business, which is Nature Works. And this is a film from Thomas Regnault's short film on Martin Crawford's Forest Garden. If you click on the P button, you can see a link to the video. It's well worth a watch, that video. I think also you can click on that. Oh no, you can't. You get a look at the notes, and then you'll be able to have a look at the video, and it will show you around Martin Crawford's large established forest garden. And as I said before, really, it can be called a forest garden, food forest, edible landscape. It's the same thing. What you're doing is you're growing edible crops in a wildlife garden. There's another way of looking at it. And all the while, it's an edible ecosystem. So it's like everything is connected from the insects through to the birds, through to the larger mammals, to plants, to fungi. Everything is connected, and everything you are creating, what you are creating is greater than the sum of its parts. It's not just individual plants you're putting in. You're creating a whole living, breathing ecosystem. And it's kind of cool, it's kind of good to have a look at this lovely illustration from Martin Crawford's book, which I'll show you in a second. This is the characteristics. For me, there's loads of different characteristics of it, but it balances on the edge of wild nature on one side and an orchard on the other, and it's the edge of woodland. This is the kind of what you're looking for. So you get enough light for understory crops, but it's way less maintenance. The further right you go on that illustration, the more energy is required to maintain it like that. The more fragile it is, the less species there are. You want to kind of go towards wild nature. And please don't forget that it is a garden. This is something I think I kind of skipped over when I started creating the forest garden here. That it is a garden. It does require intervention, and it does require maintenance, management rather than maintenance. And yeah, so it does require the human touch, but it can be a fantastic space. The three characteristics are: it's sustainable, IPC, I love a good acronym, integrated pest control. So basically you want things to come in, eat your crops, strange though it may sound, so that the predators come in and then they will eat the things that are eating your crops. So you want to bring in the insects, you want to welcome everything to a degree, because you want to welcome in the predators and you want to get it into a balance. This is what we're aiming at, is this balanced ecosystem. It provides its own nutrients, and most of the plants you'll see in a forest garden are perennials, not exclusively, but mostly, because they are lower maintenance. It's a productive garden, so you have a range of different produce, food and building materials and herbs and flowers and all sorts of different things, and it uses up all the available space in different layers as well. So as you can see from the illustration where it sits, it kind of uses up that space. It's not just like one flat level. You kind of use better, more efficient use of space, and it's low maintenance, so it makes it more productive for the amount of energy that you put into a forest garden. It actually gives you an awful lot more back. And it's wildlife friendly by design. It is what you're trying to achieve is a balanced ecosystem, and for me a very large part of that is using native plants where possible. The layers, kind of just wanted to give a couple of examples for the layers. There's a canopy layer, which is this is an illustration by Graham Burnett from his book Permaculture for Beginners, I think it is, and he talks about forest gardens in there. The canopy layer is this one, and the example I've given is a stone pine. I just wanted to give some not your normal trees, not your normal plants. These are all links as well. So stone pine is a medium-sized tree, quite a big tree with a big umbrella type profile. Beautiful tree, and that's a kind of canopy. You can get smaller trees underneath. So, for example, you could have a semi-dwarfing medlar, which is looks like a type of apple. They grow very well in the UK. Then you have the shrub layer, which for example, a lemonade bush, which I've just planted today. Funnily enough, it's Rhus aromatica, and it's a small, low-growing, low growing bush which has fruiting kind of spires, fruiting flower spikes, which are just brilliant, lovely. Herbaceous layer, which is comfrey, meadow sweet. So herbaceous means that they die back, all the leaves die back in the winter and they grow again next year. So meadow sweet, fennel, a whole range of different comfrey. Meadow sweet's a beautiful UK native plant as well. It's one of my favourite plants. Root plant, and the example, there's a carrot there, but the example I've given is hopness, which is American pignut. And then the ground cover. So you always keep the ground covered. Whatever you're doing in forest gardening, you always have a permanent living ground cover. And the example I just got to plant some tomorrow, funnily enough, is bugle, which is a great native plant. And there's some different, you can get different colours and different varieties as well. And then a climber over here. And the climber, it could be a vine, Caucasian spinach, a hop. There's a whole range of different climbers, hardy kiwi, and that's that one there. So those are the 7 different layers. And then when you're going through the gardening, these are the 3 things that are always bear in mind. So first off, get the spacing right. That means make sure there is enough space between trees for the light to come through for the plants beneath. So that's the first thing. It's quarter to the half of the average canopy diameter. So if you've got 2 4-metre trees, it's roughly 1 to 2 metres gap between them. Yeah, and the examples here. And there's a link here as well. The second thing is put in windbreaks. I use dead hedges, which are just piles of dead sticks between posts. And then ideally you want to grow a living windbreak hedge as well. And your plants will grow much faster if you give them that protection. So this is absolutely critical. This is stuff I always kind of come back to time and time again. And then finally, this is my emphasis on this, is native plants where possible, because native plants have co-evolved with local wildlife. It means small insects will eat eat those native plants, and provides more food source for a wider range of insects and habitat as well. But you want to plant for insects, and everything else you'll get for free pretty much. And on that kind of note, I do think that forest gardening really it's what I call intersectional gardening. In that it's between your traditional edible gardening, your annual vegetables, wildlife gardening, and ornamental gardening. And forest gardening sits smack bang in the middle. So a forest garden can be very ornamental. I'm creating one at the moment. So it's a nice way of thinking about it as well. It's like the best of all possible worlds. Okay, so now we move on to the 3 stages. So that's like a definition of the forest garden. And now we're going to move on to the 3 different stages. They're going to be, first of all, plan, which is where you're observing your site and you are designing your site. The second part is a structure. So I like to break this down so that you're creating the windbreak hedges, and you're putting in the planting the canopy layer, the big trees, and then you're putting in paths and any other kind of structures that you have, like polytunnels or compost bays or what have you. So that's the second part. And then you can actually leave a bit of a gap, and then you cultivate. This is where you, area by area, you prepare the ground. Normally it's going to getting rid of grass or digging up tree roots or digging up bramble. Put down a temporary ground cover, plant shrubs, and then plant the ground cover. Yeah, but the nice thing is you can do it in these 3 stages, and you can take your time over doing it and plan those 3 different stages. And when you come to the cultivation of the different areas where you start to put your shrubs and your herbaceous perennials in, then you don't have to do it all at the same time, which is what I've tried to do here and failed spectacularly. What you can do is just to concentrate on one bit at a time, let the other stuff go to grass, keep the bramble out, nettles out. But that's the kind of overall thing. Plan, structure, cultivate. So plan. First of all, when you're planning, buy this book. I'm going to do it. It's improv. It's improv with the old Creating a Forest Garden, Martin Crawford. Get a copy of this book. That's the kind of best overall book for creating a forest garden, loads of different plants. There is a spreadsheet in there as well, which is, I've created a spreadsheet with a couple of people, which is called bit.ly forest garden hyphen spreadsheet. And that has the list of all the plants in the book, and then you can sort that spreadsheet as well. Oopsie, sorry. So plan. So the next thing you want to do is create a map. And I'm saying this is a map of the space that you have. What is important to realise is that if you're just doing one forest garden, you don't have plans to become a forest garden designer, then I would say stick with paper because it's easier. You don't have to learn CAD and all the rest of it. And I use 5mm squared paper, A3 if you can get it, and then draw a scale. So it's important to work out the scale. The reason for this is that when you put on the trees, you can figure out what size trees you can fit in and get the tree spacing right. That's the most critical thing, because trees are actually quite difficult to move once you planted them and once they're growing. So a simple map like that is perfectly fine for the vast majority of gardens. There's no need to learn computer software or SketchUp or CAD or anything. So work out the scale. Now I'm going to have a quick look at the observations. So this is plan the observations. There are 4 things that you need to check and go through them. There's the handy checklist in this link here. There's the position, most important really being which way does your garden face, where does the sun come from. There's the elements, this is the water, wind, sun and earth, and what is the soil like, where is there water on your land, how is it in the winter, what is it like in the summer, is there too much water, not enough water, where does the wind come from. Features, existing features, so that's existing habitat, existing plants, then the utilities, electricity pylons, water mains, buildings, foundations, paths, access, and then your situation, so your neighbours who you live near, whether any kind of roads, any noise, and then also your own situation yourself, which is like how much time, energy, skills, money do you have as well to put into this particular project. So once you've kind of you've got your checklist of observations, then you go onto your wish list. So you make a wish list of the features that you want. I always put wildlife number 1, put seating, somewhere to sit down, and then structures, somewhere to grow plants in, ideally a potting shed or a polytunnel. Then I look at plants. There's a link to the Forest Garden spreadsheet there, and there's a fantastic website called Plants for a Future, PFAF, where you can look up a whole range of different useful plants. And then finally, inspiration. I use Pinterest and I collect a load of pictures for myself and for different clients. I'll put a load of pictures together, so I find that a very useful tool as well. So gather all these things and get your observations and then get your wish list together. And then it's onto the design. So design is my definition of it is purposefully putting things into the right place. Don't put a tree by the back door. And then design on paper. So you add your observations, you add your wish lists, and then you create circles for trees so you can see the spacing between the trees. And remember, spacing, windbreaks and native, always bear those in mind. Crikey, structure. So the structure is the first of all is a kind of canopy and the windbreaks and the paths that you're putting in. So windbreaks, grow a windbreak hedge. Make sure everything that you plant for final size. Put a windbreak hedge in. A dead hedge is like as I said before, some any old branches in between posts, and provides temporary windbreak. And it also makes fantastic habitat as well. And a nurse tree is a small tree a small shrub that you put in front of a young tree to protect it. Plant paths, I like to use grass. If you've got a large area, grass paths. If you've got a smaller area, you can use wood chip, and then I hoe the wood chip, or a very small area. If you've got the time and the energy, you create a hard surface because it's easier to maintain. And then I include as part of this, I include perennial vegetables as part of the structure, because perennial vegetables take a while to get established, and it should be at the heart really of your garden. So you can do the windbreaks and the canopy trees, and then get the perennial vegetables going in perennial veg beds, but in and amongst trees and shrubs as well. But it's a good thing to get them going, because then it gets your garden productive. So the really good things to bear in mind when you're creating perennial vegetable area is paths, signage, near the kitchen because you want to give it your attention. Here's some names here for backyard larder, incredible vegetables, edimentals, and food forest garden. You can look at those in the benefit of your own time. And then onto the canopy. Make sure you put your windbreaks in for your canopy trees. Spacing, quarter to half of the average canopy diameter, as I said before, and then choose the right rootstock. An awful lot of cultivated fruit trees are grown on rootstocks, and it's the rootstock that determines the height and the vigor of the tree. So choose the right rootstock and you'll get the right size tree that will fit that space. Finally, on to cultivate. So it's always a good idea, depending upon the size of your garden. If you've got a small garden, not so much of a problem, not so much of an issue, but if you've got a larger garden, it's actually much cheaper to propagate your own plants. So what you really want to aim for are the plants that are easily propagated, like strawberries and different types of raspberry, and comfreys and stuff that will take easily from cuttings and from runners and mint and that kind of thing. Native plants, because, well, I always think you should be growing native plants where possible in a forest garden. And then you want to grow ground cover, plants for ground cover and hedging, because this is a ground cover. You'll be amazed at how many plants that you actually need for the ground cover. Hedging less so, but ground cover definitely. So when you come on to the kind of cultivation, you want to concentrate on one area at a time. So you've got your windbreaks in, your trees in, and then you divide your garden up. Your garden is divided up by paths naturally, and then concentrate on cultivating each area at a time. That will give you a lot easier control over how much time and energy you put into a specific area, and you get one bit done and then move on to the next bit. For ground cover plants, it's about 3 to 5 plants per meter squared. So for just a 10 meter square garden, that's 400 plants, which is a heck of a lot of plants. So get propagating. And as part of this, normally, the majority of times people have a lot of grass that they want to get rid of. This is what I've did on a small area. On a very small area, use a spade or turfing iron to get rid of the turf. And then, yeah, you can plant into that. But for the medium-sized area, I'd use a cardboard mulch. I did this on the garden I'm working on at the moment. Cardboard mulch, and then I shipped in some compost and topsoil mix and put bark on top of it, and that works. That can work really, really well. The idea is to kill off the grass rather than have to kill off the grass that way. And if you have a large garden, my favoured approach is to use a mini digger to scrape the turf, the top layer of the turf, not the topsoil. Scrape that grass off. I don't like using woven plastic sheet mulch because it's plastic. I have used an awful lot of it here, and it just ends up in the bin, or in the ground. So it's not a good look. The planting process is, so you cleared the ground, and you've got your shrubs ready to go in. First of all, I always put the bark mulch down, so I use bark rather than wood chip because bark takes longer to decompose. And then you plant the shrubs in. You can see that I've drawn some chalk circles here where the shrubs are going and what kind of diameter they are. Make sure, again, you've got the spacing right on them. And when the shrubs are in, I plant out the ground cover at 3 to 5 ground cover plants per square metre. And then finally, I put in a temporary ground cover. Here in West Wales, I use a, what's it called? Mustard. It's a Alba synapsis white mustard. Oh, crikey Moses, I can't remember. Anyway, so there we go. So break it down. Plan, canopy, cultivate. And at this point, I just wanted to say, if you're setting up a garden, what do I need? You need energy. And this is a kind of really useful diagram that I did for a client. You have an initial hump that you want to get over where it is at the moment. Say it's grass, and it's quite a lot of energy to mow grass all the time. If you can convert that into annual veg, it's even more energy because you have to keep weeding it all the time. Anyone who has annual veg knows that. But for a woodland forest garden, it's less energy, but you've got a hump that you need to get over to get it cultivated. So it's good because the energy comes at the beginning of the project. And you can use any space, any size garden can be gardened in forest garden principles. It's more about creating an edible ecosystem than it really is about it has to be the edge of woodland and it has to use all available space. It's flexible. It's a human-made definition. And here are some very useful reference points. Microcroft's Great Forest Garden Spreadsheet, Plants for a Future. RHS Plant Finder is very good. It also has a native filter. And Orange Pippin is a brilliant resource for finding out different fruiting varieties. There we go, the end. I'm going over now to Zoom. Thank you very much for watching. I shall catch up with you soon then. No questions coming in. Brilliant. See you over at Zoom. You've got the link.